So today for the huddle, I want to do it a little bit different, but I think it's still going to help y'all out. What I did is I went through each of my. I want to go through each of my stocks and the ETFs that we're trading, and I'm just going to mute all of the indicator, right? So I have not done this in some time on a huddle. I do this from time to time on my own, but whenever I trade, every so often, every few days, sometimes every day, depending on the movement, I like to mute the indicators. I'm not going to take them off because obviously these are still my favorite indicators, but I'm going to mute them. And so what we're going to do a little exercise today. And it'll still help you understand direction. But each one of these, what I want to do is I'm going to go through and we're going to just take a fresh look at it and see what we think. So, first thing I do in this exercise I want to show you is I'm going to go to the daily. The reason why I go to the daily is because I want to see the whole picture, the entire thing, right? All the way back, right? We want to see, is there any upper or lower lines that we need to establish on the daily? And so the fairly obvious upper is going to just be this peak to that peak, right? That's our clear upper. So now let's look at the lower. So we have a few options, right? So this is what confuses people sometimes is you have here to here, right, would be your safe bet. And this could be the line, right? So one of the things a lot of people are talking about is that we'll have that 80% crash. This could be that crash. This could be where when we get our all-time high next year, right? We come through and we crash all the way back down to here. So it could be a very viable line. Now, I don't think we're hitting this anytime soon, so I'm not going to play off of that line. So what is another low that we could potentially go off of? Well, you have this low and you can pull it up and you have that low right there. Now you can pull this up a little higher, about right there, and I want to show you, I'm going to zoom in. Don't be afraid to ignore one candle or one wick if you can get multiple touches only, right? So we have, by just ignoring this one candle, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 touches off of that. So it could be pretty viable, right? So I like that as my upper and my lower. Now, this is where the color coding comes in if you want to use some kind of color coding. So a lot of times for support on my low, I like to use teal. For my resistance on my high, I'll use something like purple, right? Whatever color you want to do, it doesn't matter. All you're doing on this by the daily is you're boxing it in your upper and you're boxing in your lower from the daily. So now we want to just kind of zoom out again. We know price action's right here. Obviously, this is big price movement because we are on the daily, remember. So we want to look, is there any key areas that we want to watch, right? And so what I want to do on this one is we're going to mark just temporarily right there. On my horizontal ones like this, I like to do yellow. That's just always been my thing. So that's kind of above the price action. The reason why I'm doing here is you have resistance fairly recent, a lot of resistance through here that could not hold, and resistance here, as well as some support there. Now, if you look, we actually have right where we are another one, and we may delete these as we go on, but I just want to mark them, right? Because as you come through here, right, you have resistance, you have support, resistance, and then we have flipped it, and then it's trying to see if it can hold as support. So that's kind of a good area to put. The rest of these are a little low, so let's go to the 1 hour and let's take a look how those lines light up with what we're seeing. All right, so we do have some good peak here. We did break above it there. This is regular trading hours. I like to go for extended when I'm doing my lines like this because it's going to give you a clearer picture. So it looks like we can probably move this one up to there. let's see where it lines up if we put it right at the top of here. About right there. I like this because you got these peaks. This one collapsed, that one again, and it hits that perfectly. So I like that, right? So again, like you've seen, I start out on the daily, and then I work my way down, right, into the 1 hour. So now let's see if we like this one on the extended hours. So to me, it's not bad. It's just, it's kind of close to the price action for me to call that support. So I'm going to pull this down a little bit, like about right here. The reason why I'm choosing this area is you have resistance, you have a lot of support through here. You got 1, 2, 3 perfect resistances, collapsed, came back up, almost perfect resistance again, collapsed, right? And then we come over here, you got support, and you got support. So we could probably hold this where it is right now. This is a big low because it's 429. We're sitting at 448, right? Obviously. So now we want to see what would tell us if we're breaking down from that, right? So we can take a localized trend line, something like this. Now the more closer ones I like to do white. And then I can take something like this, and now we've boxed that in also at a shorter time frame. So now when we hone this in, right, we want to look and see, okay, we have it boxed in, we know we're at the upper part of the range. What do we see, right? And so if you look here, we have kind of a roundedness coming on like this, right? So we're in the upper part of the range. So I want to possibly be thinking put, right? Now, if you look here, we had something similar, right? You had your roundedness and it collapsed down. So we can look back and see, is there any other situations that it did that? Now this one had that roundedness, collapsed to its support, and then took off, right? So there's a chance that we can get this roundedness like this, right? Have it collapse to here or here and then take off. And so it's important to make sure that the support, that you know where that is, right? Because as this is starting to continue downward, it you don't want to get caught, right? You want to make sure you're trailing that because it could be a hefty bounce. So now that I have those, I want to look a little bit closer. But before I do so, I like to look at the 200 EMA and the 21 SMA. Plus, I want to look at the divergence potential on the RSI. So you can see here we had 1, 2, 3, 4 actual divergences that came across. This is listing 3, but there's another one in there. So we had an entire divergence, which basically called that drop. We're still headed down, we're red. So although we are low, right, on the RSI, we have room to go. We're only sitting at about 34. So the oversold is going to be under 30. So we got some room to go. So as you see that potential of falling, now we want to kind of hone back in. And I'm using this drill as also how I do my live trader, right? So this is an exercise you can do as well. So if we were to collapse, right, there's not a lot holding it up other than this potential resistance and, you know, this support area within here. So there's a chance that we could get a bounce somewhere around the 445, right? But it's likely to reclaim this side and then get to about here or so, 441, 442, before we get that bounce, if we break this neckline. Now, you can take this neckline and mark this actually as a zone. So we're going to put it, we'll put it about right here. So the reason why I'm putting it here is because we had a break above into the new channel. We found a support, pumped up again, found a higher low, and it went, right? So this is a significant area on this side. If it were to break this and find resistance, it's going to drop down. However, if we can hold support on this, right, you might end up with more of a inverted cup and then create a handle, right, where we come back up to the 450. So to to kind of see on that portion, you could take a small line like this. To me, it makes it a little tight, so I don't really like that. I'm just going to kind of watch and see where that goes. So the other thing, I think it was 451.80. That was a really big support and resistance. So I'm going to mark this one. This one to me was very pivotal because we talked a lot about it. So I'm going to make this one just kind of a little off color there. All right. So now that we have that kind of boxed in, I'm going to overlay some of my indicators. So I have my zone tracker, does not have support until about 445 if we break this line. Resistance is 451.83. You can see it's pretty much right where that line was. We are below the 200 on the 15 minute. Let's go back to the 1 hour. We are above the 200. So now this is going to be a very, very strong support off the 200. So although we don't have maybe a support line, you have what was once resistance and a 200 EMA. So if we were to break down to about 446.58, it's going to get a potential bounce off of this. And that could be maybe what creates that handle, right? It doesn't have to be a perfect pattern. So we know that. So let's take a look at the Bollinger Band. This is the 21. So the 21 has us below it. So we're in what's called a squeeze. So as this continues to come down, it's going to likely ping pong between 446.50 and 449.54. That's our range today. If we break below 446.50, we're coming down. If we break above 449.85 or so, above this 21, then we're likely to come up and retest this 451.82. So that's how we're going to end up playing that. I don't use those EMAs much. I've used a ton of them, and they're all great. They all have their own resistance levels, but you have to remember the EMAs are there's ones that have a little more impact than others. The 200 is going to have typically the strongest impact on the support or resistance lines, and then I use the 21 SMA because it's a little bit of a quicker mover, right? And so it helps me with my golden crosses. And my death cross, right, works really well. So that's kind of the squeeze that we're looking at today. That's how I box that in. So now we're going to talk about it on this page, but we'll get into our automation. For those new to the channel, we do Live Trader. It's an automation that we have set up. So now for my Live Trader, I want to go in a little bit tighter. So let's go to the 5 minute and let's just look at our stuff here. All right, so we know that this yellow line is potential support where we could get a bounce. However, we know that we're in a potential rounded top that could collapse and could reclaim this side here. So it would be very risky to put a call right here that close, right? Because if we break it, if you get a bad candle bounce and it puts you into that call and then it breaks it, right? Now you're in trouble. So you could set a stop loss, but to me, it's not a surefire trade. It's a risky trade. So what I would prefer for today is I would prefer to put my put up somewhere off of this 200 on the 5 minute, plus resistance area in here. So we'll probably put it. So I would say somewhere up in this range here, like 449, right? That's where we'll take our first put. And we're playing the bounce off the EMA. And then the put continuation, we'll put somewhere down here around 447. Because if it breaks this support, right, comes down, hits a rejection, it's going to come down and it's likely to reclaim this side. And if it doesn't hit it, it doesn't hit it. So just remember all that once we get over to the Live Trader part of it. Now for the call, I'm okay with entering a call, but I would rather wait and not do it right away in the morning. Let this play out a little bit, right? I want to see that this holds as support, and then I'll let this. I'm okay with missing that, but we'll do a continuation call somewhere like maybe 449.60 or something like that up here. So that way, if we do enter a put and it runs on us, it's going to enter that counter call, right? We'll make a little profit on the call, and then we'll deal with the put. So that's kind of how we play it out. I wanted to spend a little more time on kind of how we do the TA for live trader, and it's just it's helpful for overall TA for you guys anyways. So that's kind of the range that I do. Now I'm going to look at things like my gap fill sniper. So the gap fill sniper shows that we have been more bearish on the 5-minute than we have bullish. Typically, this one is a gap fill indicator. So this one, when you end up too much bearish, eventually the bulls will step up. Usually about 30% is the highest I've seen before it just automatically turns. And so we're sitting a little bit, about 11, I think 15% or so it calls for the bearish gap fill, or it'll call a bullish gap fill actually. And so our visible range, we've kind of broken out of that range. We'll see how this resets once the market opens on that. So we can't really play this one. We do have some gap fills in here, some small gap fills. You have this larger gap fill here. Let's see if we have any gap fills over here. I mean, I figure we would. So there's a couple in here. Nothing real big though, which is interesting. So let's mute that one and let's check the harmonics. So the harmonics on the 5-minute are showing a crab. We are still in a short. Let's go to the 1 hour and check the harmonic. We are in a short. So I called the short. And you can see called the long right here. So currently we're in a short. So it has not called a long. So I'd be really careful on the put or on the calls with the SPY. Doesn't mean we won't get a little bit of a bounce, right? But until I see this flip to a long, it definitely could be dangerous. So that's kind of how I flip through these indicators, how I do the TA through that pretty quickly. We don't have the time to do each and every stock per se. So what I'll do is once I finish the community channel call in about 13 minutes or so, then I'll hang on for TikTok if you guys have any questions or you want me to look at any stocks in particular. All right, let's just jump to the Dixie. Let's see how that's going. So I will do the Dixie quickly. We're just gonna do kind of the same thing. We'll just zoom out. So the Dixie, I mean, you can draw a nice little bottom there. I don't know that I like the top because it had a really good one like this. But you can see we've actually broken that. But let's draw it again. See, we've actually broken through that. So not necessarily a resistance line, and there's really no trend line now that captures that. So what we have to look at is there just any kind of resistance levels that we want to watch, right? So obviously you have this one here, which it's struggling at right now. So we can mark that one, and then we'll mark this. And then we'll mark this this other one here. So the Dixie is going to be important, guys, because if it's getting near a rejection area, then we're likely to get a bounce in the stock. So if it is about to pump, then we're likely to get a rejection in the stocks. So as you can see with the Dixie, we are pretty high on the range. We did get a long call on the 1 hour on the harmonics. Let's look a little closer. So it does have a short call now. But the interesting thing, just beware, is you can kind of see we have this kind of falling channel going on here. Right, so it could be a potential bull flag in there. So we'll want to watch that a little close. But other than that, it has it pretty much short. Bitcoin, I'm not going to talk a lot about Bitcoin, guys. Bitcoin's just not really doing a lot. You can see we had our fall, it bled, it had its reclaim like we talked about last week, and then that just absolutely collapsed again, and we're back into here. So this was a classic move of buy the rumor, sell the news. So a lot of people got wrecked on that. And people are still in these longs, I'm sure, and it's still gonna do this. I had a lower, we had a low on Bitcoin at, it was somewhere in the low 20s. I had erased my lines, so let's look and see. Let's pull up the daily. So if you take this here and then just kind of ride that up to capture that wick and all that, this could be a very viable, like bottom, which would put it about 23.3 or so. I don't really see anything else because even if you take, if you take the one from here, that obviously broke, which is what caused this volume. And then you take this one from here, and we're like right at it. So you can draw it, I guess. If it breaks this, right, this is the next level here. For our upper, well, let's box it in just tight right about there, which would put it about a reclaim. But just it's not looking very, very strong right now. So I just did the SPY. Link in bio, you're a little late on that, but if you go back to YouTube, it's all recorded. So it's ATA_trader. If you go, let's see, to our live trader, this was our live trader settings yesterday. I actually erased it, but let me show you guys. Here it was right here. This was the play that we did. If you guys remember, we had it set up to do, it was 449.35. And what's funny is where it actually entered, it literally wicked to 449 like 34. It was like by a penny. It was so funny. It was awesome. The thing that drove me a little bit crazy though is after we got that call, I thought about letting another one go, but I didn't. I dropped it down a little bit to be safe because we did have a really good win. It ended up like TP 3 or 4, and it did not drop. Right, it created the higher low and then it pumped up. More annoying, and this happens, right? If you look at my setting, I actually had it to open a trade at 451, and I was right on the TA that I put because we hit 451 1, 2, 3, 4 times, almost 5. But it needed one of these candle bodies to close above it. So I was literally off by 1 penny. So I was right by 1 penny down here, and I was off by 1 penny up here. So it happens, right? That's part of the automation. So we did not take that, but we did call that. So that was a great call. So where do we go from here? So we talked about this on the other side of things, right? So we don't want to take a call on the lower portion quite yet. So I'm not going to place a call for the beginning. I'm going to delete all these alerts that we had yesterday so we can start fresh. All right, so my play that I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do a continuation put below this support here. So we'll say 447.20. So I always do my bottom one as my continuation. Don't forget to change your contract days. I'm gonna go a little bit higher. I'm gonna do 10 contracts. 447.20 because I'm anticipating it catching a crash on this one, if it plays out the way we want. We're gonna do 1 trade only. That looks good. I'll just delete this. We'll put put contin. That way I know what it is, and then I'll just do 447. Keep it simple. I got lazy on my names. All right, now if we happen to get a bounce on market open, let's take a look. So we're at 448. Let's move this to extended for right now. Kind of looking. I don't like the lower range for my put. We could take it off of kind of a trend line. So if we get a bounce, I would say if it gets up to like 449, let's say 449, like 60 or so, should be good. All right. So this is the automation I'm setting up if you guys are new to following. 0.3 or 0.5 is not going to matter much, John. It'll be fine. It's gonna, I mean, it'll change it depending on the roundup, but it would be $1 either way, so it's not gonna change a big one. But you can if you want to. I'll probably just leave mine. 6. Okay, so we're gonna do 449.60. I think is what I said. 449.60. So 10 put 449.60. There we go. And we'll do put 449.60. So for me, reclaim, to take a call, I'm probably going to set just a protective continuation call, because if we do pump up enough to break this trend line, I'll put it at like 450.15 or something. So we're going to say 2, 10, 6, 450. Yeah, 450.16 is good. And that's all correct. All right, and this is going to be our continuation one, so I like to label that just so I know. So we'll put call continuation 450.16. I like to set that just because if it does happen to get some news, it breaks north, it throws us in that put, but it continues up, it protects that put. I don't want to throw a call down below quite yet because I don't know that it's going to hold this range. It very may hold it, but that's okay. If it does, you know, we'll have a little bit of range in here that we won't trade, but we'll assess that in the room once we get into the room. So for now, I have the 2 puts and the call. So we have the put that it's going to take on 449.60. So if we get up to that, if we break the level, we're going to take the continuation put around 447, and then the call continuation will be 450.16. So if it ends up, you know, hitting those, great. It's a little bit of a spread range, so there might be a chance we may not even trade, right? But it's okay. That, you know, we'll get some trades in the room just through the oscillations. This one right here is more automation, right? So we don't want to touch it. We don't want to think about it. So I'm gonna go ahead and mute this one. And when you're done setting all your stuff, you want to make sure there's no yellow in here, right? You shouldn't have any in there. So that's gonna be it. All right, guys. So that's all I have for today, guys. TikTok, I'll hang on for another few minutes if you guys have any questions. But as far as the community goes, I hope that helped you guys out on kind of how I do the TA, how I adjust the ranges, how I try to find the live trader bounces, you know, so you can set up your settings. And